Well, good evening, everyone. It's Linda here from Just For Tummies with our next live event. So if I've set everything up correctly, if I've got the tech right, you can see me and you can hear me. And please ask any questions. We do have a list of questions that people have already sent in, but if you have any further questions, just send them through to us in the comments. So I'd like to welcome you first of all to this live, and it's all about poo. And I'm going to introduce my guest to you in a couple of minutes. But first of all, a little bit of housekeeping. So it would be lovely if you could tell me where you're from, because I love to know where people are watching, where you live, or not necessarily where you live, but where you are at the moment watching this live event. And please do share it. If you know anyone that would benefit from knowing how to poo better, share this event. If you know anyone who's maybe interested in having colon hydrotherapy treatment, then do share this event. So my guest tonight is a lady called Katherine Brooke Mackenzie, and I've known Katherine for several years. She's a natural health therapist like me, and she is also a colon hydrotherapist like me. And she's written a new book, and this is her new book that is now available on Amazon. And I'm going to put, just checking some comments, sorry. Oh, hi, Tim from across the pond in America. Thanks for tuning in, Tim. And who else? Hi, Linda from South Yorkshire. Hi, Charlotte from West Yorkshire. Hi, Kevin Booth from downstairs. Kevin, don't make me laugh because you'll start my cough off. So anyway, that is Katherine's new book. Let that go. 31 things to do if you want a better poo. And if you want to purchase Katherine's book, you can go to Amazon and do so. Yeah. Okay, that's Katherine's book, 31 Things to Do If You Want a Better Poo. If you want to purchase the book, you've just got to comment or request it, and we'll send you a link to Amazon where you can buy the book in paperback and or buy it in Kindle, or both. So without further ado, I am going to get Katherine onto the screen, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself and why she decided to write another book, because this isn't Katherine's first book, by the way, and we'll talk a little bit about her first book if we get time later. Now, we've only got just under an hour for this live. I want to finish at about 5 to 9. So if we don't get around to answering all of your questions this evening, then over the next few days, we will get back to you and we will answer your questions. So don't worry about that. So without further ado, let me bring Katherine onto the screen. Hi there, Katherine.
Hello, Linda. How are you?
Well, I'm good, thank you. And you, have you had a good day?
I have. It's been a nice warm one, hasn't it?
It has indeed. And I don't know if you can hear the birds singing. I've got my window open here and they're tweeting away.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Katherine, so I wanted to bring you on to a Just For Tummies live event because I've known you a long time. We are fellow colon hydrotherapists, and we love a good conversation about poo, don't we? And, you know, we don't get embarrassed about poo, you or I, you know, and it often comes up in conversation at the dinner table, doesn't it? You know, bowel movements or lack of bowel movements. So I have a great deal of respect for you, Katherine, because you're very passionate about what you do. Your heart's in the right place, and you genuinely want to help people achieve better health through better digestive and gut health. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to write this book, please?
Yeah, of course, Linda. That's a mutual feeling, by the way. A lot of respect for you too, because you have done wonders, I think, for tummy health all around. Yeah, I've been like yourself. I've been in the complementary and alternative health field for about 20 years. As you say, I'm a colon hydrotherapist. So I've been at the, shall we say, the sharp end of the digestive process for about 16 of those 20 years. And I'm also qualified in traditional 5-element acupuncture, although I don't actually practice anymore, simply because there just isn't enough hours in the day, really.
Oh, no, sorry, Catherine, I didn't realise that. I thought you were still practicing acupuncture.
No, I've not done pretty much since I did colonics, because it was I did the acupuncture first and then the colonics, and then I was pregnant with my daughter, and I thought at that time, I'm either going to do 3 things badly when she's born, or I'll do 2 things fairly well. So I had to drop something, and the acupuncture is what fell away.
Okay.
Yeah. And as you say, very passionate about that. I just find the whole gut health thing just fascinating, really. And every client that we have, walk through our door brings something new for us, doesn't it? Everybody is teaching us something.
Yeah, I always say that, Catherine. When I had the clinic, I always say that I learned so much from my clients. And if it wasn't for my clients, what I learned from them, there wouldn't be Just for Tummies and a range, the range of Just for Tummies supplements. I simply could not have developed them without everything that I got from my lovely clients.
Yeah, I totally agree. And as far as writing the book goes, the latest book, the Let the Go,
yes,
call it. It's not the most diplomatic title, really, is it?
No, but knowing your sense of humour, I totally get why you decided to use that title, Catherine. You naughty girl.
I know, controversial.
Yes.
It was really because of those people coming in to the clinic. It sort of helped me to understand that there's an awful lot of confusion, really. In my opinion, I mean, I don't have all the answers, but I felt like the stuff that I've learned is very practical, very grassroots kind of advice and education that people could benefit from. I thought maybe I should just pop it all in a book and put it in a top tip format that doesn't make it like trying to read War and Peace or something that's really arduous for someone who's not much of a reader. So I thought if I put it in this structure, people can kind of dip in. It might be something you even leave in the toilet, and just read one top tip a day or something like that, with a little bit of a backdrop of how I got into this rather unusual business in the first place. Because
I would help. I'm sorry for interrupting, Katherine, but I would hope that all the colon hydrotherapists in the UK have a copy of your book in their reception. And I don't think this one's in print now, is it, Katherine?
I'm afraid it's not, but you can download it on Kindle.
Can you? Because when I had the clinic, that was in my reception area, and I know that so many people benefited from this little book. I mean, it's not a big thick tome. It's like you're saying, this one's not War and Peace either, but the information in it is so useful, especially for people who have never had colon hydrotherapy before. So maybe they're feeling a little bit nervous. They're not quite sure, of the procedure and what happens during the procedure. Okay, carry on.
No,
sorry.
Yeah, that's why I put that together, really, because I think if you look online, if it's something you've heard about, or you might have know a little bit about someone that has done it, it's great to have a referral point from them. But if you do a bit of research, it just tells you what it is. Anything on the internet, this is what it is. But what people really want, in my experience, is to know how it's going to feel. What's it going to do for them? And it answers questions from both sides. It's not just the positive spin. It's the kind of, the fearful questions that people have as well. Like, am I going to make a mess or, humiliate myself? That sort of thing, which we know doesn't happen, does it? So.
No, of course it doesn't. No, and I think all colon hydrotherapists I've ever met have always gone to great pains to reassure their clients. I always like to think that when someone walked into my clinic, that they felt safe and secure in that space. Yeah. And yes, I do sometimes miss the clinic. I do miss my lovely clients. But like you said earlier, Catherine, you can't be all things to all people. No. I was running the clinic. Just for Tummies was getting busier. Our granddaughter was born in February, and something just had to give. I'm just going to have a look at a few comments, Catherine, because I can see them popping through. And Janet from Birmingham. Oh, hi, Julie Clark. Thanks for showing up. Brittany, hi Brittany. You're one of the lovely clients that I miss. Karen, Jean, Anne, Annalise. Okay, right. So As I was saying earlier, welcome to you all, and thank you for taking the time to join us on this live event where we're talking about all things poo related. And I did ask people a week or two ago to send me any questions that they had regarding poo, and were they not pooing? Were they pooing too much? And I think it would be good to just mention some of the things that we come across, well, that you come across now. I'm no longer in practice, Catherine, as colon hydrotherapist. And I know I know IBS is a huge thing. And in clinic, a lot of my clients came to me for help in reducing the IBS symptoms. But I think coming in a very, very close second, even at pole position, would be constipation. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's again, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go back to that thing where I think people aren't really given very helpful advice about it either. And even actually having what I would say like is a poor idea confirmed. So I've seen people, as I expect you did, Linda, where they've come in and been told by their GP or something like that, that having a poo once a week is kind of okay. It's just part of their normal function, I mean, it's not part of anything's normal function to not relieve itself of its waste on a daily basis. It's a big bodily cycle. So having a poo once a week or even every 3 days or even every 2 days is really, unfortunately, setting yourself up for a problem. I think further down the line it might not be evident straight away, but yeah, I mean,
I don't know how it got to this. Do you, Catherine? Because I know the Victorian doctors, they were keen advocates of maintaining regular bowel movements, and if not, bowel cleansing using enemas. And I think back then in Victorian times, I know colon hydrotherapy has been around for millennia, but in its present form, using kind of gravity feed colonics, I think it came in with the Victorians, didn't it? But they were passionate. Victorian doctors were passionate, and they understood how important it was to get rid of the body's solid waste. So I just don't know what's happened really since then.
I don't have an educated opinion, but I could make a guess, and it's probably more to do with like pharmaceuticals, really, that we've become more dependent upon drugs than we have upon relying on practical advice, practical applications, if you like enemas.
Yes.
And so consequently that's sort of fallen off the radar for people, and again, we don't really know where to go, and so we kind of normalize this what I'm going to say is like a bad habit of having a poo once every 3 days. Or I mean, I saw a lady not that long ago who has a poo once every 10 days, and she was in her mid-60s, and so she'd been that way for 40 odd years, 50 years or so.
It's amazing. I mean, did she have any other because obviously if you're not having a poo for 10 days, Catherine, then I'm just thinking about diverticular disease, because obviously if you're chronically constipated, you're at an increased risk of getting diverticular disease. You're at an increased risk of getting bowel perforations. You certainly and all that pressure that's building up in the bowel is pressing on other organs, and it can be painful too, can't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Pressing up into the diaphragm, and I know that from people who have suffered with chronic constipation, that it affects the breathing as well. They're struggling to catch the breath because all that space, because the chest cavity is kind of being compressed by all that stool and all that gas in the intestines. But once they've had a really good poo or a really good colonic, they find that they can just, the rib cage drops, the diaphragm drops, and they can breathe better.
Well, it's really interesting you bring that up, because in Chinese medicine, the large intestine or colon is paired with the lungs. So it is, if you're not letting anything go, then there is no inspiration. I mean, you could take that on all levels, the body, mind, and the spirit levels, if you wish.
Yes.
It's that physical, like that holding on, will impede your ability to literally inspire, breathe in, be inspired. Yeah.
It just fixes the rib cage, doesn't it? So the rib cage can't move. So I just want to read out a list of common symptoms of constipation, and and some of the causes of constipation as well. So, you know, we've got constipation can cause bleeding. Now, obviously, any change in bowel movement, any rectal bleeding needs further investigation with a GP. That's one of the first things that we should mention, and especially if you're over the age of 50. And I don't know if I mentioned to you, Catherine, when we spoke before, but my husband Kevin has recently had a colonoscopy.
No, you didn't mention it. No.
Yeah. Well, Kevin is 63 next, so he had his first. In fact, Kevin and I are going to do a live about this, aren't we, Kevin? Kevin's watching
From downstairs.
From downstairs. So Kevin, he received his. Obviously, when everyone reaches the age of 60 in the UK,
Yep.
Well, in England, reaches the age of 60, in Scotland it's 50, they're entered into the bowel screening programme, and they receive a bowel screening kit that they can carry out at home. So Kevin received his first one just after his 60th birthday. Now, with COVID, his second one was delayed about 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he received it, he did it, and they picked up some bleeding. So they were absolutely fantastic. The NHS, in this case, he was quickly referred for a colonoscopy, and they found some polyps. Now, Kevin being Kevin, he wanted to see it on full 4K. Colour. So he didn't have sedation, he didn't even have gas and air, and he just sailed through it. He said he didn't feel a thing. He said he didn't feel a thing. But other than a little bit of discomfort when they were filling his bowel with air, as you know, they have to fill the bowel with air before they go in with the scope. And they found a few polyps, one of which was quite large and bleeding. And they removed it there and then. And he has to go back in a few months for a sigmoidoscopy, and then in a year for another colonoscopy. So anyway, I'm digressing.
But you make the point, though, that it's like if you pay attention, you need to act when you see something like bleeding. Like, say, you need to act on it. It's not. I mean, sometimes, more often than not, it's nothing to worry about, but it's not something to ignore, is it?
And when you receive your bowel screening kit, you don't throw it in the bin. You do it because the endoscopist who was carrying out the colonoscopy on Kevin said that in maybe a year or two that big polyp that they removed, it could have turned cancerous, and that would have been a different story.
Very much so, yeah.
Right, so yes, bleeding. Constipation can cause bleeding, it can cause anal fissures, hemorrhoids, bloating, stomach cramps, embarrassing smelly wind, interrupted sleep, anxiety, headaches, skin problems, weight gain, feeling sick and dizzy, increased risk of urinary tract infections, painful intercourse, and stool often difficult to push out, causing pain, so anal fissures and hemorrhoids. And I think that's just a few of the main ones, really. I don't know if you've got any to add. And obviously, we've seen all these during our years in practice as colon hydrotherapists, haven't we?
Yeah, I think another big thing for me, and my own personal experience of having suffered with constipation many years ago now, is you somehow you don't feel yourself. That's just like an understatement, but it's like when the core of you isn't, or you're not centered, and your gut is such a major part of that. You just don't feel like you're representing yourself properly. It's like everything is cloudy, and foggy in your mind, and you have no clarity. That's how I feel if things aren't moving well, should we say.
Well, like you, I also suffered with constipation when I was a younger woman. And of course, it was constipation that took me off to seek colon hydrotherapy treatment. It was recommended to me, colon hydrotherapy treatment, and then it had such a positive impact on my bowel and my health that I decided to train in colon hydrotherapy. So and I've never suffered with constipation since.
No.
So some of the causes of constipation: the use of antibiotics, which disrupt the gut microbiome, lack of sufficient fluids, and we're always banging on about this, aren't we? How much that people need to increase the fluid intake, not just for the health of the bowel, but as we get older, for the kidneys as well, for everything, for the brain, for everything.
Well, you can't last very long without water, can you? You know,
No,
and if
no.
we're not putting enough fresh stuff in, and you know, one of the primary functions is to absorb fluid.
Mm,
So then it's literally squeezing what it can get out of your food waste to recirculate around your body. If that's not an
yes,
incentive to drink more water, I don't know what is, frankly.
yes,
And
yes,
also, you know, we have it on tap. No pun
yes.
intended.
We have it on tap. I think what we pay for our water it's just as cheap as chips, what we get our water for. The quality of okay, we could get into the whole debate of what else is in our water. And that's probably a lie for another day. So we won't go down that. But at least our water, you know, it's drinkable, isn't it? It's
Oh
drinkable.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
mean,
Better to have it than not, right?
let's have it than not. And if you want to go down the road of filtering it and having reverse osmosis filters fitted in your house, then that's a choice for people to make. So resisting the urge to go. I mean, how many times have you heard this, Catherine? When I speak to people, you know, and I ask them, they tell me, oh, well, I don't go to the toilet at work. And I say, well, why not? Because if I needed a poo, I will go anyway, within reason.
There are limits, but yes, no, I
There
hear
are
what you're
limits.
saying, and it's that thing, isn't it? And again, I wrote a blog about that not long ago, about that. You know, your bowel learns, doesn't it? So if shall we say, if the train's in the station and you know, you're not paying any attention to it, eventually it just won't bother. You know, it's not going to
Yes.
knock on the door anymore.
Yes, yes, that's a very good way of putting it. Yes, and you just end up with a confused bowel, don't you? And then, of course, that can all that fecal loading in the sigmoid area and in the rectum can increase the risk of rectoceles and hemorrhoids, of course.
Well,
So
and then
let's
in turn, you know, eventually, potentially prolapses and stuff like
and
that, isn't it? It
prolapses,
becomes really
yes.
serious, yeah.
And prolapses. So yes, thyroid issues, of course, an underactive thyroid can contribute to constipation, can't it? So
It's a slowing down of the whole system, isn't it? It's like everything
just
becomes sluggish.
slowing down of metabolism. Yes, yes. Seems to be more common in women than men, doesn't it? And going back to constipation again, I'm just going to have a quick drink of water. I was reading that 1 in 7 adults suffer with constipation in the UK and 1 in 3 children do. So that is quite alarming.
Gosh, that's shocking, actually, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So mineral deficiencies like magnesium. Yes, of course, we need magnesium, don't we, for muscular contractions. And the bowel is a muscle.
Indeed, indeed.
As I said, Catherine, I've got a bit of a cold and a bit of a cough. My lovely granddaughter passed it on to me.
Children are very generous like that, aren't they?
They're very generous, yes, giving their bugs away. So if I have a coughing fit, everyone, you'll have to excuse me. Oh, and welcome everyone. Sorry, I'm ignoring you. Welcome to our live event where I have Catherine Brooke Mackenzie, natural health therapist, colon hydrotherapist, author extraordinaire. And Catherine is talking about her new book that's now available on Amazon. There you go. Let that go. 31 things to do if you want a better poo. How much is the book on Amazon, Catherine?
It's paperback is $11.99, and I think Kindle's around about £5.
Okay, yes. I didn't download the Kindle one because, to be honest with you, I like to read a physical book.
You like to hold it in your hands.
I do, and I like, to take it in the bath as well. So let's have a look at, of course, low stomach acid. That can increase the risk of constipation. We need sufficient stomach acid to break down all of our food into molecules small enough to be absorbed. So it's very important from a nutrient absorbent perspective. But also, yes, the gallbladder insufficiency. Bile. We need plenty of bile because bile helps initiate peristalsis, doesn't it?
And of course, emulsifies fats as well. So
yes,
if you can't, we're not digesting that properly. Yeah.
I'm just having a look at some questions, just making sure that. Oh, hi there, Sam. Thanks for joining us. Yes, Andrea, Jackie. Let's pop this question on the screen. Thank you, Patricia, for this question. So at the moment, so many people suffering from tremendous amounts of wind, they feel this is causing constipation. Do you want to take that one, Catherine?
Well, I would say it was probably, sorry, very itchy ear. More likely to be the other way round.
The other way round. I agree with you. Yeah.
So it's more likely that the constipation, because of course when stuff gets stuck in the colon, then this is my understanding of it. You may obviously comment, Linda, if you don't agree. But when you think about the gut bacteria, when they're if everything's stuck, then and if poo's not moving through your body properly, then it kind of almost gives the bad guys, because there's this constant battleground between the good guys and the bad guys. It gives the bad guys a chance to proliferate, start winning the war. And often it's those bad bacteria that are giving us those dreadful body coughs, shall we call them?
Body coughs, Kath. I've never heard that term before. Body coughs. Yes, exactly. So because I often get emails from people and they say, "Oh, I suffer with bloating and gas and constipation," and I say, "Well, okay, you're suffering with constipation, and it's that's causing the secondary bloating and gas. So once we sort out your constipation, you'll probably find that the gas and bloating subsides, unless it's an issue around lack of stomach acid, and I'd probably recommend some digestive enzymes, for something like that." So thanks very much, Patricia. I hope that's helped. But yes, the wind is probably caused by constipation, because if someone is not expelling their wastes on a regular, at least daily basis, then there's an awful lot of toxic gases going to be produced and stretching, expanding those 23 feet or so of intestines. Right, let's get rid of that question. Gone. Okay. Right, what else have we got here? Oh yes, some medications, of course. Medications can cause constipation, can't they?
It's kind of cocodamol's the usual suspect, isn't it?
Yes.
It goes hand in hand with the laxative. Dysbiosis, as you said, dysbiosis is a word for like an imbalanced gut bacteria, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
And that can be responsible for all sorts of wonderful things.
Yes. Hormonal changes, of course. I get inquiries from women who have started, and the last live that we did was all about the menopause and how hormonal changes during the menopausal transition can cause digestive and gut disorders, and constipation and acid reflux can be two of those common causes. And it's all about managing symptoms, isn't it? For me, I don't go in for labels. For me, it's about how are these symptoms affecting that person's quality of life, and what can we do to improve those symptoms.
I agree.
So let's have a look then. Oh, aging, of course. Aging can cause constipation and aging gut. So, and I've heard stories, and I'm sure you have, Catherine, about some of our older people in care homes who can become chronically constipated because of the medications that they're taking and the fact that they don't move very, very much. And we know that movement exercise is a big part of helping to stimulate transit time and get that peristalsis, that contraction and relaxation of the bowel going and pushing all those wastes along.
It's also the elderly are just ridiculously dehydrated, aren't they? Most of the time they just drink diuretics. They don't ever, well, at least in my experience, very rarely drink volumes of water. That's, like I say, lack of activity, such a big part of it.
I can understand why, Catherine, because they say, well, if I drink water, I'm always having to go to the loo to empty my bladder, or I might have a little accident. But yes, so what? That's normal, isn't it?
But like you said earlier, when the colon's so full up with fecal matter, then it's going to put pressure on the bladder anyway. So it's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it? Really?
Yes, and we know that there's evidence to support this bacterial translocation, where if the bowel is very impacted, or if certain exotoxins are being produced in the bowel, they have the capacity to pass through the bowel wall, especially if the bowel is already compromised in some way. If that that mucosal, that biofilm that covers the bowel wall has been degraded in some way, then it's much easier for those toxins to pass through the bowel and to get into other organs and systems. And of course, again, constipation can be caused by structural issues like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I don't know if you've ever come across anyone with that condition, Catherine.
I have to say I haven't, Linda. So
right. Well, I haven't actually had anyone in the clinic when I had the clinic with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but I know on the Tummy Talk Facebook group, there's been some comments about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it's as far as I'm aware, it's an autoimmune disease, and they have very hypermobile joints, and they also have a very hypermobile bowel.
No, that does ring a bell, actually. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and that affects transit time.
Okay.
So there's just no or very little peristalsis. So there's nothing to push the wastes along. Yes, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Okay, gosh. Sjogren's disease. I've got a friend with that.
Yes.
I was just thinking of another one, of course, which is Hirschsprung's disease.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the one where I think there are I can't think what the word is now.
Do they call it megacolon?
Megacolon, which is what Elvis Presley had, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right. Yes. Yes. Elvis died of a heart attack, didn't he?
Well, he was on the toilet, wasn't he?
He was on the toilet having a poo, or trying to have a poo at the time, pushing, straining, and he had a heart attack.
It's not very rock and roll after all.
That's not right. At the age of 42, what a waste.
But then he was notorious, wasn't it? His diet was notoriously bad, wasn't it? He was like very, very, very rich, high fat, very low fiber diet. I can't remember this particular kind of sandwich that he had, wasn't it? I can't remember what was in it now. Like a deep fried thing.
Yes, and medication as well, of course. Some of which slows down transit time again. Sjogren's disease. I had a lady come to me for colonics who had Sjogren's disease. And Sjogren's disease, everyone, it's again an autoimmune disease, and it's wherever there is an organ that has a mucosal lining in the body, then there's no mucus produced. So they get very dry mouth, a very dry bowel. If it's a lady, a very dry vagina. And if there's no mucus there to help wastes kind of slip and slide along, then constipation can be a complication. And colon hydrotherapy, can really help in such a situation. So I mentioned before. Let's have a look at the questions. Okay, we have a question here. How can I help transit for a tortuous colon? When you say torture, I'm not going to mention this lady's name, but when you say tortuous colon, have you actually been diagnosed with a tortuous colon? Have you had an abdominal scan? Have you had a colonoscopy? And you've been found to have maybe a long, loopy bowel? Because that would be a tortuous colon, in my opinion. Don't you think, Catherine?
Yep, I would agree. Yeah.
Yes. So how would we handle a tortuous colon? Well, if you're constipated, which you probably are, then first and foremost, go and seek the help of a colon hydrotherapist. and get your bowels cleared out properly. And then the colon hydrotherapist would be able to help you in managing your constipation through diet, through supplements, maybe through some natural laxatives to help improve transit time as well. So much can be done with a tortuous colon, with a long loopy bowel. You don't have to suffer. Okay. Any more questions? So Erica, I'm going to pop this question on the screen, okay, because I think this will be of interest to a lot of people, and it's something that's very close to my heart. So thank you for this question, Erica. So Erica she's been on a high strength antibiotic since March, and she's constipated due to them. What do you suggest, please? Erica, you've not said why you've been on long-term high strength antibiotics, so I don't know if it's because you're getting recurring UTIs, because very often ladies that have recurring UTIs, sometimes their GP or what's the name of the consultant, Catherine? Urologist,
Yep.
Thank you, will put ladies on a long-term course of antibiotics. And antibiotics kill off, if they're broad spectrum antibiotics, they kill off a lot of the beneficial bacteria in the gut, and this bacteria has so many functions, including ensuring that we have normal transit time in the bowels. So if you've been constipated since you've been taking antibiotics, Erica, then I would suggest that you begin taking live bacteria to help repopulate and replenish your gut with the bacteria that the antibiotics are killing. So the antibiotics that you're taking are probably doing a wonderful job in killing off the pathogenic bacteria that's causing your infection, but because they can't tell the difference between the good bacteria, the bad bacteria, they'll be killing off lots of your good bacteria. So you can go onto the Just for Tummies website and get yourself a pot of our bestseller, Live Bacteria Probiotic Capsules. If you've never bought, these are £21 for a month's course. If you've never bought from us before, Erica, you can use promo code Love Your Tummy and get 20% off and free delivery. So I'm sure you have some thoughts on antibiotics as well, Catherine, that you'd like to maybe share.
Again, just to reiterate what you've said, really, they have a place, don't they? Of course they do, but very often people aren't given advice of what to do to sort of redress any imbalance that they create.
Yes.
So I think it's a bit like if you're, I always try to explain to clients, if they're sort of trying to go on a journey from one place to the next, sort of from A to B, and they're 1 degree out at point A, by the time they've traveled the distance to B, they're 5 degrees out. So it's the same. Once your gut is out of balance, it kind of exponentially becomes more out of balance over time.
Yes. Well, it's interesting, Catherine, because someone else has just mentioned in the questions, how come antibiotics give you kind of very loose stools? And of course that can happen with antibiotics, can't it?
Yeah, in a sense, it's the same reason, isn't it? It's like yes. the other side of the same coin. Because when the good bacteria are, like they manage the digestive transit, that doesn't mean it's always about making things move quickly. It's making things move slowly. It's about making it in an appropriate transit time.
And we know that, that there is such a thing as antibiotic associated diarrhea as well, where some antibiotics can cause diarrhea. And I would certainly recommend taking live bacteria again in situations like that. I'm just checking the time, Catherine, and it is,
crikey.
I know, time's flying. So I want to get through a few questions that have been sent through to us, and if we can kind of speed through these. So I think you've already answered this one, Catherine. How often should someone be emptying their bowels?
Well, my answer is at least once a day.
Yes.
And if you get more than that, but I mean, you can do it too often, can't you? I expect you've had customers where I've had ladies come in and say, oh, they struggle to go once a week or something. My husband goes 10 times a day and he's always boasting about it. Well, that's not great either.
I think 10 times a day is a bit excessive.
You know what I mean, though, don't they? It's like, oh, you can set your clock by me, all this kind of thing. But really, once a day minimum. But if you're one of those lucky people who eats a meal and then, one in, one out, then good for
Yes.
you. And it's also not just about the frequency of the movement, it's about the quality of it.
The
So
quality, the volume of it as well.
yeah, it shouldn't come with a sense of urgency that you can't manage. It shouldn't be difficult to pass. And this is a difficult thing to quantify, particularly in a video format, but it shouldn't be like so horribly smelly that you're, like your house is impregnated for 3 hours. That
Yes.
isn't right either. But in terms of frequency, once a day.
I absolutely agree. And someone's asked, when I eat more fibre, I get constipated. Why is this?
Oh gosh, this is one of my bugbears, to be honest, Linda. I'm constipated, eat more fibre. Oh no, because it's like if you imagine, I put this, it's actually in my book. If you've got a blocked drain, it's not going to help you to add more leaves to your blocked drain. And a lot of one of the reasons for having constipation, as you've mentioned already, is insufficient gut bacteria, or the right types of gut bacteria. And fiber is manna from heaven for gut bacteria. They love it. But if you don't
it's a prebiotic, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's the fertilizer that feeds the bacteria. Yes.
But if those bacteria aren't there and you keep adding more fertilizer, it's blocking up the problem, isn't it? So
yes, exactly.
That's why. And there are also different types of fiber. Some, they're soluble and insoluble, and those have a slightly different effect. So it's important to be eating the right sort of fiber.
And to be drinking plenty of water.
Absolutely.
Because if you increase your fibre, you must drink more water to help push it through. Right. A lady here, I have MS, multiple sclerosis, and can go a month without having a bowel movement. So I've beat you on your 10 days one, Catherine.
Yeah, I had a lady once similarly with I could tell a whole story about that, but that'd be another time maybe.
Well, well, for me, it's definitely colon hydrotherapy, providing there are no contraindications, and it's looking at diet, looking at supplements, and looking at natural laxatives, and managing that constipation much better than it's being managed at the moment. Right.
So can I just make a point about laxatives? I mean, not all laxatives are bad. I mean, they get bad press, don't they? About it's going to make your bowel lazy and all that. But there are different types of laxatives that have different actions. Yes. So again, once you've decided so if you're an IBS sufferer where your bowel's spasming, the last thing you would want to do is put senna into your bowel. Yes. Because it's going to aggravate it and make it probably more tense and more kind of uptight, that sort of thing. Whereas you'd have something that was more soothing. Yes. So there is a place for them. Sorry, Linda, I know you've got
no, and I absolutely agree with you, Catherine. Right, so this lady here, what does it mean if your bowel's empty every time you eat a meal? This is my daughter. She has normal stools, but every time she eats, she goes to the toilet half an hour later. She's 7 years old. And I would say, that's to be celebrated. That's normal.
That's like the gold standard of digestion, because it is literally one in, one out. And when you put something in your stomach, you stimulate this reflex, which creates a big movement all the way through your digestive tract, and a poo comes out the other end.
Yes,
so
yes.
It should be celebrated.
Natural, isn't it? So her gastrocolic reflex is working, properly. And I would say to this mum, don't worry about it. I mean, I'm assuming that her stools are normal. She's not getting any cramps, any pain when she's emptying her bowels. So it's perfectly normal to, having eaten a meal, to feel that urge to go for a poo. Right. So I've had food poisoning with yellow diarrhea for a week, and now I'm constipated. So we're not quite sure how she got food poisoning. I think food poisoning with yellow diarrhea for a week. If she'd have contacted me earlier in the food poisoning event, I would have advised her to go to the pharmacist and get some electrolytes, maybe, because a week with diarrhea, can cause an imbalance in the electrolytes. And I would recommend colon hydrotherapy, which seems a bit counterproductive because she's had diarrhea. But I would, if she's had a bug, I would certainly recommend colon hydrotherapy to help clear the bowels out. I would then recommend a 5-day charcoal cleanse, taking some of the Just for Tummies charcoal capsules, and I would get some good live bacteria back into her system as well. Have you got anything to add, Catherine? Sorry.
No, only that
I'm monopolising.
No, no, not at all. It's great. I think, again, people have this experience where it's like a feast or famine thing. So they get constipated and they might take a laxative or something like that. Then they have diarrhea for a couple of days and then they don't go anywhere or nothing moves for a couple of days and then they're constipated again. And a lot of that is to do with like fluid balances, isn't it? So this lady with the food poisoning, it sounds like, she'll have had all that diarrhea, body will be very, very dehydrated. And then now when
Yes,
things are starting to stabilize again, her body's working hard to reclaim the fluid. So it's making
of
that
course.
stool sticky
Yes.
and dry and difficult to pass. So
So it's very
fluid
important that
all the
she
way.
drinks plenty of water, plenty of fluids.
Yeah.
And I'm going to end on this one, Catherine.
Oh,
How
really?
can
I'm having such a
I
nice
know.
time.
Well, we'll have to come back on and speak more about it. Okay, there's quite a few about colon hydrotherapy. Just two very quick ones. Is colon hydrotherapy safe for someone who suffers with chronic constipation? If the bowel is already full, there's no room for anything else, including water. Well, that's not true, is it? Because water will always find a way. And I say to people, if someone's chronically constipated, then colon hydrotherapy is the best treatment for them. Because as you, the colon hydrotherapist, begin to introduce that warm filtered water into the bowel via the speculum, the water begins to find a way through the stool. It begins to soften the stool. It acts like a solvent, doesn't it? And then it can exit via the outlet tube.
I always use this analogy. So I imagine like a dance floor when it's absolutely filled up with dancers and nobody can really strut their stuff. So what the colonic does is like it creates a tiny little bit of space. And then what you notice, I don't know from your own practice, is like to start with the bowel may be really unresponsive, but then literally after a few minutes, it's like it just starts to come to life. And
Yes.
then you see those dancers when they've got a bit more space, they start getting their elbows out and their
Yes,
that's what
yes.
I always
Stretch
think of
out.
it. It's like,
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
And then it starts to move. It's about
It
just gently
starts.
creating space.
Yes, it starts to move.
I think, can I just say something that's just really important? It's
Of
like
course.
we have to remember, like our bodies are hardwired to heal. That's like sacrosanct, isn't it? They know what to do. They have everything there that they know what to do, how to heal us. But it's like we have to provide the environment for that to happen.
Yes.
I think that's the key thing. It's like often nothing is as broken as we think it is. Do you know what I mean?
And that's where complementary therapists of all disciplines can help people. Whether it be colon hydrotherapy, nutritional therapy, medical herbalism, reflexology, aromatherapy. I mean, I'm a big fan of reflexology and aromatherapy and acupuncture, and I've been having the treatments myself for decades. How we do it? Oh, okay, one more. So, can I have colon hydrotherapy if I have diverticular disease?
That's one for me.
Yeah, well, if you want to, yeah.
No, I'm curious to hear what you say, but my answer to that would be yes, you can. Provided, I mean, the diverticular disease is the condition, but if a person comes to me when they're describing it as diverticulitis, which is the inflamed state of diverticular disease, so anything with an itis is essentially an inflammation. And in those instances, you wouldn't treat that. That's contraindicated. And you would know if you were inflamed because obviously you'd have a lot of discomfort, pain, potentially bloody mucus and bloody stools and that sort of thing. So otherwise,
I feel terribly sad for people who suffer with diverticular disease, Catherine. I get so many inquiries from mainly women who suffer with this condition. Diverticular disease is a fairly common and should be benign condition that affects the bowel, the large bowel in particular. More common as we get older, over the age of 50, 60, certainly 70. But these people who are getting these constant attacks, these diverticulitis flare-ups, with no real information on how to prevent the attacks. So they get an attack, they get diverticulitis, so the GP prescribes antibiotics until they get their next attack, and then another course of antibiotics, and then before they know where they are, they're looking at antibiotic resistance in the phase. If anyone suffers with diverticular disease, please go on the Just for Tummies website and download our diverticular disease fact sheet. It will help you understand what diverticular disease is and how you can better manage it so you're not getting those unpleasant attacks. There's also on the Just for Tummies website, under free advice, the navigation bar at the top, a free download about constipation. I'm going to have to begin winding it up now, oh dear. Time's just flown. So I just want to say, don't forget everyone that you can get Catherine's book all about how to have a better poo off Amazon in either paperback or Kindle. And you see, we've not touched on the liver, have we? I've just noticed here, be the lover of your liver. Fibre, a cautionary tale. Water, the unsung hero. Food, chilling or chilled out. Rise and shine, poop on time.
Yay.
So Catherine, I just want to thank you for taking the time to come and speak to me.
Well, thank you for having me, Linda. It's been great. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
And it would be lovely to have you on a Just for Tummies live event sometime in the future, and maybe talk about what you were telling me earlier before we went live about this new subject that you've been studying about consciousness.
Well, we've got a way to go on that one yet, but I'm I just need to integrate it myself, and then yes, happily.
Yeah, it just sounds so fascinating. Thank you everyone for joining us. If we haven't managed to answer all of your questions this evening, and I can see from looking at the comments that we haven't, I'm sorry about that, but over the next few days we will get back to you and we will answer everyone's question. So thank you for joining us again, and have a good evening, and thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Good night.